gentlemen, it is that time again. It is album review time. And for this review, Duncan Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from Japanese riff monsters, Sonic Flower. The band's new album, Me and My Bellbottom Blues, that's going to be a tongue twister, gents, will be released on September 30th via Heavy Psych Sounds. So, Sonic Flower. If you've never heard of them before, they were formed as a side project from Church of Misery in 2001. Tatsu Mikami, who is the Church of Misery bassist, and Takanori Hoshi, the guitarist on Church of Misery's second album, Second Coming, teamed up to play more bluesy and instrumental heavy rock influenced by 70s acts such as Cactus, Granfunk Railroads, Groundhogs, or Savoy Brown. Guitarist Arisa and drummer some guy joined them, quickly joined them.
Some guy.
Kaisuke Fukawa, I think.
Nailed it.
In 2003, they released their bluesy, heavy rock self-titled debut album, Sonic Flower, on Japanese label Leafhound Records. This instrumental, improvised, double guitar charged record was internationally acclaimed, and they got the chance to support Electric Wizard, Bluebird, or Acid King on their Japan shows. In 2005, Sonic Flower went in the studio to record new material, but as Arisa was pregnant and day jobs prevailed, they put the band on hiatus after the recording session, and those recordings slept in the vault for 15 years until Tatsu decided to reform the band in 2018. This time he teamed up with former Church of Misery singer. The result was their new album, Rides Again. 2021, it was released through Heavy Psych Records. Their brand new album, Me and My Bellbottom Blues, sees guitarist Fumiya Hattori joining on guitar for a late September release on the Italian label. Recorded in Tokyo in early 2022 and mixed by Japanese doom guru Yukito Okazaki of Eternal Asylum fame even. Me and My Bellbottom Blues is their biggest work to date, according to Mikami. So, gents, back with a new Sonic Flower album in 2022. We reviewed their last album, Rides Again, which was technically an album that was over 15 years old, but hadn't seen the light of day. It was also a completely instrumental album, whereas this album now sees the band joined by the former Church of Misery vocalist. I don't know about you guys, I tried not to listen to any of the singles from this album. I just wanted to hear the album in its entirety.
I had heard Black Sheep.
Right, okay.
And as a result, I was hella fucking pumped. Black Sheep is a fucking banger. So I was very, very, very excited to hear. I didn't listen to Swineherd, which is technically the opening song, but the second single. Mm-hmm. So I kind of did the Dave thing at that point where I was like, I need to wet my whistle here. Oh, this tastes nice. I'm going to hold off and then binge that motherfucker when it comes in.
Nice. Kyle, did you listen to singles or?
Nope. I was the same as you. I wanted to go in dry.
Nice. Oh, lovely. That last album, Rides Again, I'm pretty sure Kyle definitely gave that top marks. Duncan, did you go 5 on that one as well?
I gave it 5, yeah.
Did you?
I thought it was fucking great. So. Yeah.
Oh, nice, interesting. So, Kyle, what did you think of Me and My Bellbottom Blues?
You're getting better at it. Every time he says it, I'm like, the ultimate goal is for you to be able to say it 3 times fast back to back and not say the word bell end, which is really difficult. So, like, it's the hard part. So, if you're lucky.
Nice.
Sonic Flower 2, flower harder.
Flower longer.
Flower longer. I mean, as you said, I was high as a kite on that last album. It was fuck it, I loved it absolutely. So when I saw this land in my inbox, thank you, Dave. It was I was like, ha, finally it's time, because I'd seen them been talking about it a lot. And
give me Glasgow Ned. Oh, big man, how's it going? Shit. Amazing.
I've only been to Glasgow once. It's really
That's how they all talk.
Really?
How they all talk over there.
It's really, really sunk into me, hasn't it? I was. I like that last album. Didn't check out the singles because I like to listen to albums as they come. And this is more of the good stuff.
What he's doing?
What?
Fuck's sake!
Dave
He's trying to talk
can't
about
keep it together.
Try to talk about his Bellbottom Blues. Talk about more how it came to you. Was it thick?
Thick and blue.
Oh,
Jesus.
fucking Papa Smurf.
Oh dear, dear.
Oh, we're gonna have to cut this bit out.
Stays in. We won't edit. That's the beauty of doing this show.
Oh,
you get
Jesus.
it straight from the fucking teeth.
Straight from the Smurf's testicles.
I'm too close to Sweden to be listening to that joke.
Sorry.
Jesus Christ. Oh, I can't remember what I was going to say about this album.
Oh, you hadn't listened to anything. You were
That's
getting
right.
ready to.
There
You
we
loved
go.
the previous one, and then you
Loved the
put it
previous
on.
one. Hadn't heard. Put it on. More of the good stuff. Not really the same stuff. Very similar stuff, but it has evolved a great deal, I feel. Like, in a very good way with the
Would you
addition
say
of the
15
vocalist.
years worth of evolution?
15 years of evolution. That's quite true. I didn't consider that. But with the addition of the new guitarist and the vocalist, it's like taking it to a whole other level. And I love it. Like, the riffs are more riffy. And I don't know how to explain it. Like, there was riffs on the previous one, but this time it's like they're more focused and they're way hookier, they're way catchier, they're way like more constructed as like a song and everything into the song. The production on this is even better than last time. It's still raw and organic, but it sounds fucking huge. It's just massive. And considering it's from that sort of 70s rock fuzzy blues sort of inspiration, it's like if they had music back then like this, it would have blown everybody to bits. And I'm just like, oh. But no, I loved it. Every song for me really, the opening song Swineherd was like, wow, you guys really stepped it up. And then each song got better and better. My only gripe is the sort of jammy sort of bits at the end, like they sort of go a bit jam band the last few songs or last couple of songs. And for me, tiny little bit, incy little bit, can't stress this enough, just a little bit. It felt a bit too on the long side. I was just like, that's the only gripe. That new guitar is searing some serious chops. And I have to mention it. You know I'm going to mention it, but bass tone.
Yeah, it's Tatsu though.
And
Like,
bass player.
That's his thing. That's his thing.
Oh
Like,
my fucking god, I cannot stop listening to it. Every time I put it on, like, turn up the bass, turn down the highs, don't give a fuck. So yeah, I have listened to this quite a few times. And it's going to be, if this isn't on my end of year list, yeah, I don't know what's happened, because this is really loving it. The last one was on my last end of year list, I'm pretty sure. And if this isn't again, then I don't know what's happened.
just giving away bananas left, right, and centre.
I don't know if this is banana, but it's definitely up there. I really loved it and just can't stop listening to it. It's been on repeat. It's one of those albums I found that is really easy to put on repeat. It was just like so easy to listen to and get through, just like the last one. In fact, I can play them both, but I have played them both back to back, just like first, second, repeat, all day. And it was a great day.
Nice.
That was yesterday, and yeah, you don't know.
Did all your troubles seem so far away?
No.
Ah, and they're back and here to stay. There we go.
Dad facts. Duncan.
Freaking down with the dad facts. So
What do you think?
Yeah, so like that. Weirdly, I approached this as a different beast entirely, because it technically is, right? Like what we heard before was a time capsule of music that was written 15 years before with different sort of personnel that had been remastered from the original recordings, and as a result of that, actually playing them side by side, I didn't realise how much things had been turned up, right to the line. That line that goes red on that previous release, where they've obviously tried to fix things, and it added to its charm in the listen. You're not getting that here. This feels much more organic, and as a result of that, adds more to the authenticity of the sound they're going for. I think this is more authentically sounding of the era than the previous release. While musically the previous one certainly was of that, I think in hindsight now, having heard this in comparison to the other release, I think this one fits better. It's probably worth saying the biggest tick this album has is the inclusion of the vocals. It gives the album a focus, right? It really gives it a centre point. Also forces them to be a bit smarter with their song structure, kind of like lean in on that, but it's not selfish with the vocals. Like Kyle mentioned earlier on, towards the back half of the album, the vocalist will happily fuck off for a while and let the band jam, and then he'll come back in, and guess what? That's authentic to the era. Like, bands played long songs and the singer wasn't singing all the way through them. He was away like grabbing a beer, feeling some titties, like stuff like that, and then he would come back and rejoin the band. Like, that's kind of the thing. So I think they've nailed that down. The inclusion of a kind of more lead work guitar also is driving the songwriting. To me, what was really interesting about this is how much at times the riffs, particularly on a track like Captain Frost, reminded me of something like Cochise from Audioslave.
I was going to say that. Totally Audioslave.
What 100 was One Mind. Like, it's where my brain is, like, it is he play on that riff, and it's not ripped off. I want to stress that. But it is so in line and in tune with it. It was kind of like, it was very difficult for me not to but the way they approach it as well is kind of similar to how Audioslave approached their music, and in a lot of respects how by default and by proxy Rage Against the Machine approached their version of kind of funk and blues. In that the bass is this thickening level to what the guitar's doing, and the production is so tight between those two instruments, it essentially adds a thick wall of sound, which you get all the way through this. And like I mentioned before, Black Sheep for me, the first time I heard it, I fucking fell in love with it. It might be my favourite thing on the album overall. I think it's the bit where they get most of those elements at the right length. I hear what Kyle's saying. Poor Girl and Sonic Flower themselves have those jammier sections. I'm fine with them though.
I enjoyed them a great deal.
Totally hear what you're saying though. I think if you are not accustomed or not attuned to this style of music, or you're used to modern interpretations where someone in a studio, a producer more likely, would be like, like, let's shorten it a little bit, then you're maybe not used to like the actual spirit of jam. And this is what they do specifically on Sonic Flower, which I think has like a 4-minute jam session in the middle. And they're like, let's just fucking do it. And I'm like, let's just fucking do it, including the break at the old acoustic guitar and they fucking jewel them up. I love those elements. Bass playing, you mentioned it, let's talk about it. He's such a fucking talented motherfucker. He really is. Church of Misery, like me and Dave, huge fucking fans. Like, huge fans of. And a lot of that was down to that driving, sludgy, doomy bass.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's not really doing that much different here. Except he's adding a bit more blues to it, but it is so well put together. And the moments where he gets to move away from what the guitars are doing just remind you how fucking great a songwriter is. Everything else here is tight. Drum work is good without being anything to necessarily write home about. It delivers the goods. It's a solid backbeat to everything that's happening here. The guitar work's great. I love the riffs. Once again, they're very samey, but with their own individual kind of feel, which kind of feels like I'm almost like against my own words, but that's kind of what it is. None of the tracks deviate very far at all from the sounds, but every single song kicks off with a riff that you will instantly smile when you hear it. It's just like, this is fucking awesome. And they've captured that vibe. They've captured that kind of 70s era, kind of rocky, bluesy, smoky room vibe really well on this. Vocally, I love this guy's vocals anyway, but vocally, it shouldn't work as well, because I mean, Church of Misery is a different beast entirely because of the era of music they are doing, which is from the same time period, but was a more aggressive time period. But I liked it. His accent at times comes on a bit thick, but that's to be expected. He's a Japanese man singing in English. I don't think I could do the reverse. I'm fairly sure they would be appalled by hearing me say konnichiwa. So you know what I mean? Like, is that level of it? But I thought it was really cool. I thought his melodies, once again, he's not the greatest vocalist in the world, but actually on here he fits really, really well into the equation. This is it's a cool evolution. Like, had they just given me another one of the previous albums, I would have been happy, because I really liked that previous one here. But it kind of sounds like there's been a conscientious move to make this more a band, and I think on that level it succeeds really, really, really fucking well. I once again also think that this comes out in the same year as Stoner, right? Which we reviewed. And that's in the same bubble as this. It's in the same genre. But this is better than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
This is better than that. But, if anything, there's a lot more kind of downtime and fuckery on this than there was on the Stoner album.
Yeah.
You know, where they're experimenting and playing through their, you know, like really jamming things out. But I just think it's better put together. The length didn't bother me at all. Seven songs, 48 minutes. It didn't bother me, and it is heavily loaded on the back half. The back half of the album is like almost 2/3 of the album, but it flowed really well for me. I think they're great. I genuinely do. I think they scratch an itch that a lot of people don't necessarily know that they need scratched in music, and they are once again a band that's very difficult to listen to, and not feel kind of great once you've listened to it. I think Me and My Bellbottom Blues is a great follow-up. It's a great follow-up whilst showing a clear progression and evolution in the songwriting in the band. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't as high on the last one as you guys. I still enjoyed it, but I wasn't like, it wasn't end of year stuff for me. But I think what is kind of unbelievable about this is Rides Again was a completely instrumental album, so it was all about the bluesy, sludgy riffs.
Yeah.
And yet somehow they've made this album, which has a vocalist, even more about the riffs. And you know, in some ways, like, Rides Again it probably felt more experimental, because it was just, you know, it was all guitars. They didn't have that vocal element, so they would often veer into something more psychedelic or with a lot of lead work. Like Jungle Cruise from Rise Again, for example, was very jam-like, took a lot of kind of sporadic detours. This album, it's weird, it's really strange to get your head around this one, because it doesn't sound like it was written in the last couple of years. From the production alone, listening, you wouldn't think it was written, in the last couple of years. But weirdly, I can tell by the riffs that it's a more up-to-date Tatsu that's written it. This isn't the same guy who wrote Rides Again in 2005. Since then, he's put out, Thy Kingdom Scum, or Then There Were None by Church of Misery. And I'd say some of those kind of songwriting traits have bled over into the new kind of Sonic Flower. The riffs are far more direct. They are even more groovy. They're slightly heavier in places on this release. It doesn't sound like a Church of Misery heavy. But it's not like leaps and bounds away from it either. And the riffs on this are just like, I imagine this is the sort of riffs that guitarists put in their wank bank. You know what I mean? Instead of an image of Britney Spears' butthole, like it's Tatsu Megami riffs that they're putting in the wank bank. You know what I mean? It really just it oozes kind of coolness at times, and I totally agree with you. Like when that Captain Frost kicks in, I was like, this is like, if Audio Slave started a band in the 70s, then they would sound something like this. Like it sounds like something straight off of that self-titled album. But there's also really like cool moments of like slide guitar, which leans into that kind of bluesy side a wee bit more, and touches of acoustic, which kind of adds to the mood. I agree with you guys. I think what the main difference between Rides Again and this is this feels far more structured. You can hear the verse, the chorus, the middle eight type arrangement, whereas Rides Again did feel a bit more experimental, a bit more jam orientated. This still has a bit of that, as you've said, but it does feel more organised overall. obviously Rides Again didn't have any vocals on it, so you were solely reliant on the riffs and the musical hooks to be good enough to keep you engaged. And they were, but you know, we all enjoyed that album. Now this album still has the riffs, you know, it has the riffs, but even more so than Rides Again. But now we've also got this new element of the vocals, and while they don't really like extend out with a certain range or style, they do, in my opinion, give this band even more of a personality. Kazuhiro fits that kind of retro style. His vocals aren't super pristine or always on point, but that's what kind of makes this even more authentic. It's the fact that they aren't kind of perfect that I think they work so well. I'd maybe say they do become a little bit samey maybe by the end of the album, but I think from an album like this, you're not expecting, you know, an album with big huge choruses. You know what I mean? I think the vocals are there to add energy, they add character, they complement the riffs, and they do exactly that. I think my only letdown, but the one thing I didn't like about this album is I didn't like the opening track.
Really?
Yeah, it just didn't hit me at all. I think vocally it's probably the catchiest, if you can call it that, but I just felt it was a kind of weird opener for me. I don't think it's the most kind of hard-hitting track on the album. Riffs-wise, it just wasn't as kind of memorable as the rest of the tracks. Although like I enjoyed this album, it wasn't an instant kind of home run when that first track kicked in. I was like, all right, okay, this is okay, but as the album moved on, I found it got better as it moved forward. The riffs became more kind of impactful, the grooves were a bit more pronounced, and I think more of their personality starts to kind of emerge as the album goes on. I think the production is like super kind of retro. Like it's weird though. It has like a lot of kind of. It's heavy as a lot of modern sludge or southern metal albums. But it's got the character of something that was recorded in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's really fucking cool. Everything sounds like it was just jammed and recorded to analog tape. Like it doesn't sound like it's been digitally enhanced or cut and spliced. It sounds like they've just recorded and went, yeah, that's it, done. That's it, lads, done. And it sounds exactly how you'd want this sort of stuff to sound. It sounds like it was made for vinyl, to be honest. Like I don't own a turntable, but I'd buy one just to listen to this on it. Like it sounds like it was made for that. I think Rides Again, I enjoyed it. It wasn't an album that I came back to that often, to be honest. I think further listens of it for me, it was cool for what it was, but it kind of lacked something. It lacked a bit of reward in the repeats for me. I found this album more rewarding the more I listened to it. And although the vocals don't bring any kind of major hooks to the album, I think the extra element does kind of keep me more interested in the album. So, what are you thinking, rating wise, for me and My Bellbottom Blues? Kyle, what you saying about this one?
This one is pretty easy 5 for me.
Oh.
Yep. Absolutely.
Kyle.
Loved it. Will continue to love it. If it's not my end of year list, like I said, then something's wrong. But yeah.
Wow.
5. Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Duncan.
Yeah, so you made a valid point there. Like did I actually go back and listen to much of that Sonic Flower album after listening to the first one, Rides Again? No. And having listened to it, like specifically in the run up to this review, I would probably change my grade. I think I was like very, very, very excited that night, and I flung a 5. I would probably now revise that to a 4, and I'd give this a 4.5. Nice. I think there's a clear evolution. I think they have a 5-star album, and
yeah,
I definitely do. I think the next album, I think it's so tantalizingly close. They're playing in waters which kind of benefit them to be a bit more out there and a bit more playful and a bit more bluesy and a bit more jammy. That in itself will have an impact on its re-listen value. Yeah. When I'm in the zone, it's it hits all the buttons. When I'm not necessarily in the zone, I don't know how quickly I'll pick up the album. But it's great across the board. All the changes I've made are changes that benefited the sound. And like I say, this is them, kind of reforming to do new things with a bit more effort. And I know he's trying to get Church of Misery back up and running as well, which I'm super curious to hear how that will sound now that he's got this in his headspace as well. You wonder how much of that's going to bleed through. But yeah, I think their next album could potentially be a 5. I think it's that close. So 4.5 from me.
Nice. I would go 4 out of 5 on this one. I enjoyed the album. I think it's got some really good riffs, and I think the production is absolutely fitting for the sound. I don't know, like for the style, I think there are other albums that I would probably go to first before going to this, but still very enjoyable. There's still a lot to like on this. Vocals were cool. I liked the guy's personality. A little bit samey for me, but still, yeah, very enjoyable album. And I'll definitely come back to it. I'll definitely check out again throughout the year as we go through this. So Sonic Flower and Me and My Bellbottom Blues is out on September 30th on Heavy Psych Sounds. I'll add some links below to the band so you can check them out, Facebook and Bandcamp and all that sort of stuff, so you can check out the release. Let us know what you think. Stick some comments in below, and that is the review